warm welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's largest platform for entrepreneurs. Anything and everything to do with small businesses, we cover it right here on the show. It gives me great pleasure tonight to welcome in someone who's very closely associated with small businesses. He works behind the scenes when it comes to encouraging and building small entrepreneurs and business in the country. He works very closely with the FMCG retail space and is seen as the expert when it comes to trends in the FMCG market. I'm in conversation with Saugata Gupta of Marico. Saugata, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. I was looking at a recent interview of yours. You said that both urban and rural demand looking good and that demand is coming back. That's definitely good to hear, and that's definitely a headline that we want to start today's conversation with. Do you perhaps see this then staying for 2021? What's your view?
So I think we started off obviously with a lockdown in the first quarter, but things clearly got in motion, and I think we are pleasantly surprised at the speed of recovery. At first, the rural market definitely showed a significant buoyancy, a combination of good monsoons, the amount of money the government has invested into forms of direct benefit transfer, the reverse migration, all helped to boost up the rural market. Obviously, there was some stress in the urban market, but as the lockdown eased towards sometime in August, and progressively we are seeing recovery. Having said that, I think there seems to be some stress still, especially at the discretionary items where we are seeing a slower recovery, but we are seeing a sequential movement. And I think one of the good things is that what we have seen in the FMCG industry is that pre-COVID there was a slowdown. In the post-COVID, sometime in Q3, and now the trends seem to be better than pre-COVID growth rates. And so therefore there is a industry has come back, and maybe the stronger brands and people with better agility and better response rate, they have performed much better. So the strong have become perhaps more stronger.
We all are aware of your personal journey, your personal growth, Saugata, but one or two of the highlights, one or two biggest influences, if you could talk to us about that and tell our viewers really, some of the highlights really of what that journey has been like.
Obviously, I think my biggest focus has been on two things. One, I believe in strong personal discipline, and whether this is not just in corporate world, be it in sports, be it in movies, I think personal discipline is very, very important. And therefore, how focused you are in terms of the choosing the best bets, how you allocate your resources. And there are three resources which are there, which are constrained. One is time, which is the bandwidth, one is in terms of your people, and the third is capital. And therefore, I think one needs to be extremely disciplined. The second thing is authenticity and I think a constant learning agility. I think these are two important things. I think in recent times, I'll give you the biggest experience. I think a lot of people who started work in the 90s and we were not the most digitally savvy. I think we have I have personally made significant investment in my personal time in reskilling myself on the digital area. So I think these are the two things which I believe, that continuous learning, and secondly is having a personal discipline and extreme focus.
I want to go back to what we started this panel with, and that is really the response when it comes to the pandemic. What was your initial response? How did you prepare for it? What was the outlook? And what was your thinking really going into the pandemic when it came to reopening business, when it came to communicating with your employees? What was really going on in your mind?
Strangely enough, I think this happened almost 1 year ago when I still remember March, second week when we started thinking, it was after the holy holidays, we came back to work and people started thinking that things are going a little tough, especially we were seeing news about US and Europe, and therefore, and Mumbai was also getting, in terms of the number of cases were going up. So I think 2-3 things we did. Firstly, I think as a team, we decided one philosophy, which is people first, business next, and profits last. And to me, that was something which we followed, and it is not just people, our own internal people, but the entire ecosystem. an FMCG
Okay.
company runs on an ecosystem, whether it's our vendors, whether it's our distributors and their people, the CNFA agents, and if they run, we run. So I think the first thing which we did was, I think, ensuring that we provide the best safety standards to the entire ecosystem, so that and help them to start running the business. Obviously, we were dealing with 90% of our portfolio are essential, day to day daily items, and therefore by April 2nd or 3rd week we were up and running. We assured
Okay.
the entire team that jobs are protected, salaries are protected, and in terms of safety and security, especially on the health front, we are going to take care of. In fact, we started ensuring that a lot of our people in the ecosystem are supports people. We give them cash, because for them that liquid cash was a problem during that
Yeah.
first few weeks after lockdown. And then we systematically started you know going up, and two things we followed. One is continuous communication, and the second thing is making things simple and empowering the team to take decisions. And I believe that we have come there extremely resilient. We have shown extreme level of agility and resilience, and we started reasonably normalization happened by June July for us.
You were saying communication, Shogata. I just want to go back to that. Do you think there's enough understanding of how crisis communication really works in the country? For an entrepreneur who's watching this interview to say, I wish I perhaps communicated better. I wish my communication plan looked a little different, was better. What would you want to tell them?
So you're absolutely right. I think risk management is not something which a lot of companies look into, especially small companies.
Yeah.
And there are two
Yeah.
levels of risk management. I think one is which I call of basic foundations of risk management. That's something which is black swan. And I think what will happen is black
Okay.
swan crisis like pandemics will happen more frequently. Whether it's a commodity shock, whether it's a political crisis, and therefore if you see
Yeah.
the frequency of black swan crisis are actually they are increasing, and therefore people have to be prepared. I think today the things that have changed is that you have to anticipate. You can't anticipate everything, but I think what will change in the corporate world is having always working with multiple scenarios and having a plan A, plan B, plan C for everything. And I guess this pandemic has taught us, but at the same time I believe that when people are pushed into adversity, the most innovative solution comes. So therefore, a lot of innovative
Okay.
solutions have come to cope with this. And I think India as a country, we might not be very good in planning, but we are good with coping. And I think that is something which we everybody has exhibited our coping strategy. Coming back to communication, and I think the crisis management, I think what is very very important is continuous communication. As a team, we were doing almost daily communication to our next level. We were having town halls. Lastly, I think we were having focus groups and also using a kind of a pulse survey to ensure that how the team is engaged. Later on, we realized that continuous lockdown leads to issues of mental health, and therefore we focused on mental
Okay.
health, well-being, in addition to all the concerns people had on COVID and perhaps COVID-related issues.
I'm going to slip into a short break on that note. Much more when we come back. Welcome back with us here in Leaders of Tomorrow Icons. Today, I'm in conversation with Saugata Gupta of Marico. How did you prepare for the lifting really of the lockdown? You were saying black swan event. So, for businesses which are saying that they need to ensure that they're robust inherently, no matter what is happening around them, what is your advice?
If I look at FMCG, and each industry has a different you know uh, kind of capabilities or things, building
Yeah,
blocks. For an FMCG or
yeah,
any consumer business, and it is related to any consumer business, first I think you need to have the product portfolio right, and means
sure.
whether it's differentiated, whether it's a tailwind portfolio. The second is, I think, go to market, because you might have a great product, you might not have a go to market. The third one is unit economics or the right cost structure. And the fourth, I think, entrepreneurs first, I think after the first 100 crores or so of business, they should invest in people and processes to scale up. A lot of time, I think they
Okay.
believe in only one individual can't really scale up a business beyond a point, and therefore you have to invest in people and processes.
What's your personal management style like, Shogata? Even as you were talking about the lockdown lifting, people, coming back to work in whatever form, we are talking about working in the new normal. So, for a leader, what is the management style perhaps looking like? What should they keep in mind?
So I think any great entrepreneur first starts with having a very high degree of passion or conviction about unmet need, and then
Okay.
unmet need is and then and of course an entrepreneur is obviously compared to a professional manager is far more risk taking. I think the question that happens is that a lot of time an entrepreneur has a very good in pioneering something, but sometimes
Okay.
executing and scaling up becomes a problem. So therefore I think
Sure.
an entrepreneur needs to understand that where he or she needs to seek help. And that's why if you notice versus an individual entrepreneur, always a founder with complementary skills, a set of founders work very well in startups.
Yeah.
The second thing is I believe is you need to get the economics, unit economics right. And I know today this is an era of cheap capital, but actually if you start with a principle of building to last as opposed to build to sell, I believe automatically valuations happen. And therefore, I think you need to get the fundamentals and unit economics right and invest in the right places. So I think invest in the product, because ultimately
Okay.
the offering which you give to the, in a lot of cases, if it's a digital business, invest in the right technology. And so therefore I think the instead of a lot of times an entrepreneur makes the wrong resource allocation, like one doesn't need to hire a celebrity and start advertising there, but I think investing in the fundamentals of the business and then slowly scale up. And I think it's very very
Okay.
important that it's just not about consumer centricity. It is about understanding the technology of the index, understanding supply chain, and as you scale up, I think establishing governance and different processes. And lastly, I would say I think
Okay.
ability to let go, because a lot of times an entrepreneur wants to do everything himself or herself, but having the right talent and culture in order to scale up is also extremely critical.
The overarching theme that we have here on the Leaders of Tomorrow is empowering a billion dreams. 2021, then, do you think that is going to definitely be a much better year for small businesses?
If you want to create a great market for exports and other things, is investment behind technology and quality. I think a lot of people take shortcuts, and it is very important that
Sure.
if you really want to create a one of the things that India is to be known as a great manufacturing hub is focus on technology, focus on the long term, focus on quality, because
Sure.
con- customer satisfaction and creating long term, you know creating great products is something which is important. It is not about short term, getting short term business, so thinking long term.
So then I want to talk about, brand building, particularly in the digital era. What are some of the do's and don'ts for a brand which is building a strong image? What should they do? What should they keep in mind?
I think the first thing on at least food, let me talk about food, because since
Okay,
we are
sure.
discussing food and healthy food, especially, I think the biggest consumer insight in Indians will not compromise taste for health, as opposed to Western markets where they will dilute their taste preference for healthy. So therefore, it first thing it has to be a tasty product. So I think a taste is paramount. So therefore, getting the product right. The second thing I would talk about marketing is I believe is India. Sometimes this entire, I know a lot of consulting firms paint this picture of the big middle class. This is the purchasing power, but Indians are very
Yeah.
value conscious. Therefore, I think getting the
Okay.
pricing right, because pricing, a very premium pricing, especially in food, restricts the total addressable market drastically. So suppose I have
Okay.
the most healthiest juice and I price it at 100 rupees, I've actually reduced my addressable market by 80 or 90%. Third
Okay.
thing is, I think in food is getting the distribution right, and third is uh, I would say that supply chain is very very critical. And lastly, I think what I would talk about is invest, don't blow away your advertising money. First, get a great product, get a set of influencers, get through word of mouth. I think there is enough opportunity using different digital medium. So, therefore, conserve your monies, don't blow your monies up. and it is extremely important that a great product automatically sells. I think so. That's very, very important to invest everything behind product and pricing and
Sure.
creating saliency. A lot of people, I think, waste money in what I call mass advertising today because of digital, because of influencers, and because of there's enough opportunities to actually have a kind of a very, very steady approach to advertising. Don't burn your advertising dollars.
I want to talk data. On one hand, of course, are the opportunities being thrown up by rich data, and on the other hand, are data protection, privacy concerns. How are you really viewing this entire thing?
Data, as they say, is the new oil. So obviously data is
Yeah.
getting, and that's why a lot of entrepreneurs, startups start off with a direct to consumer model. I think what is extremely important is you need to create a foundation for cybersecurity and data privacy to start with, because I think that leads
Okay.
to any such leakage leads to erosion of trust, leads to impact on reputation on consumers. So therefore, you owe it to the consumers to protect the data. What do you want to do with the data? And
Hmm.
I think slowly regulation like GDPR is coming into the India. There is already a data privacy law, and therefore it is important to in, and that's why we talk about investing in technology and cyber security at the start. This is one of the investments one should start if you want to set up a digital business, and we have to be mindful
Sure.
of the data. And it is just not data about consumers; it is data about your customers, data about your employees. Because today we are collecting a lot of data, and there is working from home, and therefore, this I think this is one area one should make their investment first and be conscious about the data privacy and your responsibility to.
I want to take in an audience query coming to us from Prabha K. She's based in Meerut. That's coming up on our screens as we speak. She says, how are the opportunities and challenges for entrepreneurs who are based in tier 2 different from those in tier 1? What would what's your suggestion? What's your advice for Prabha? Sure.
I think two, three things. If you really look at things have really changed in India, and therefore, at given the kind of internet penetration and the digital boom today, and also the aspiration, I believe there's enough opportunity in the in a smaller town. I think obviously, if you stay in a metro, you have access to different kinds of, you have access to a total addressable market, you have access to this one. But I believe today, if you have a conviction, you can always test out a business model in a smaller town and actually expand for it. I think India, we have, in the case of entrepreneurs, we have seen it in sports. I think the most, when we have seen it in, whether in Bollywood, I think it has been the small towns, the uh, people who are ambitious with a passion, with a dream, they have been able to break the ceiling and actually been successful anywhere. So if you have a great
Yeah.
idea, if you have that passion, you have the conviction, and you want to take a risk and you want to dream big, it doesn't matter where you're from, a small town or big town. I think saying from a small town is an advantage.
Personally and professionally, what have been your biggest learnings from this pandemic?
I think I believe that I think ability to handle uncertainty, ambiguity, and I would say having the grit, which is a, it needs to be with passion, with resilience. So the biggest learning is
Hmm.
never give up. I think the last year has been frustrating, but at the same time with a significant amount of silver lining. I think who would have thought I would spend so much time with the family and understand. I think during a lockdown, a lot of personal lessons in terms of you know doing things at home. So I think it's been a, for every adversity there is a lot of learning, I would say. And I believe that adversity tests you. The more you go down, I think it is a good thing is to just get up and start running again. So that's what I will
Sure.
say, that uh, I would think that sometimes adversity brings out the best in people. That doesn't mean I'm praying that adversity comes often, but I believe that a lot of companies, lot of individuals, lot of leaders have emerged far more stronger. What you would have learned when the things were going well in 3 4 years, I think you would have learned in the last 6 to 9 months. So I think it's a period of great
Hmm.
learning, and those who have learned, I think it will help them in the future, and I think it will accelerate a lot of their, whether it's their careers or their organizations, this kind of a learning, and those who have coped with well.
Shagata, thank you so much for speaking with us here on the Leaders of Tomorrow. Completely out of time on this episode. If you have any feedback for us, our contact details is on your screens as we speak. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.